Welcome back, budgeteers. Coach Nino Villa here, disciple of Christ, husband, father, and financial coach. And today I sit down with the man, the myth, the legend. It's Cody Sizemore. Hey there, budgeteers. The new year is here, and you know what that means. It's time for fresh starts and new habits. If one of your goals is to get better with your money, New Money Habits has exactly what you need to kick things off right: the Payday Power Planner. This isn't just any budget tool. The Payday Power Planner is designed to work with your pay periods, not just the calendar month. Why does that matter? Because it helps you to see exactly when your money is coming in and going out. No surprises, no guesswork. With the Payday Power Planner, you'll know if you're working with a surplus or facing a deficit, so you can make informed decisions about your money. It's not just a plan, it's the clarity and control you've been looking for to start the new year strong. Make this the year you finally build new habits for financial freedom. Grab your free Payday Power Planner from New Money Habits today and take the first step toward a better financial future. Visit newmoneyhabits.com now, because this year it's time for a better plan for your money. So Cody, I owe our listeners a huge apology. I had to do this recently when I had Renee, the student loan coach, on, where I'm like, guys, I am so sorry I haven't had Renee on sooner. It goes just as much for you, if not more, because Cody, for those who don't know, you're one half of the Financial Coaches podcast with Maria, who is on this one all the time, and we collaborate all the time. We just haven't sat down to do an episode of the New Money Habits podcast. Buddy, I'm sorry I haven't had you on sooner, but I'm even more apologetic to our listeners for not having you on sooner.
Hey, it's all right, man. It's okay. You know, we all got stuff going on. We're busy. And this is honestly, it's just as much my fault too, because it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, but just haven't gotten around to it. So I'm glad that we're able to do it now. And, I'm excited to, have a good conversation with you and hopefully bring some value to the listeners as well. So.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind that you will bring value. It's just, it's a matter of like, how soon will we have you on again after today to make sure that we continue to bring that value. All right. For those who don't know you, I'll give you a little bit of an introduction, but then I want you to take it away and let the people know who you are.
Sure.
Cody Sizemore, independent financial coach who we've been collaborating with for years now. And again, one of the hosts of the Financial Coaches podcast, which is for a completely different audience, but you bring so much value there. You are now a full-time financial coach, doing that. It's not your only source of income, but you're full-time, and it's one of your primary sources of income, if I remember correctly. And so you started sometime like right during COVID or right after.
Right in the heat of it, man. June of 2020.
Yeah. All right. June of 2020. Yeah. And here we are a mere 5 years later. And you have quite a little empire going on over there, buddy.
Trying to, at least. But yeah, it's been great, man. Been able to do a lot of good work, make a lot of impact in people's lives. And I've done a lot of different types of work in my life, but this is definitely the most rewarding one. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it is evident to anybody on the outside looking in that your care meter is really high. Like, you really care about the work that you're doing with your clients. I just want you to know that it's very evident. But I think your approach is one of the things that really stands out to me. To my own detriment, to my own fault, whatever. I'm kind of just a numbers guy. I roll up the sleeves. I just get into the budget with people, and it's all like, hey, like, I get it. You have a past, but the past is in the past. Let's just focus on what you need to do now to win with money, and let's just grind. You take a different approach. You really help people understand a little bit more about like why they behave with money the way that they do and how they've gotten to where they are. And so that information helps them to make some serious changes. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So even with what you said around like how you really focus on the numbers, the budgeting, stuff like that. That stuff is really, really important, right? Because like that basically shows us like, hey, this is where we're at, this is what we have to work with, and this is where we can be, right? So I do that too. It's not like I'm not doing that, but I definitely do
Right.
that. But to kind of build off what you were saying, yeah, I do take a little bit of a different approach because one thing that I've kind of found around personal finance and the success that is kind of wrapped up with it is that the majority of what I found goes into succeeding with this doesn't really have to do with the money too much. To be honest with you, it really has more so to do with the person behind the money, because that's the
Mm.
person who's, believing around money a certain way, thinking around money a certain way, behaving with money a certain way. So the approach that I take is like I do a deeper dive into the psychology of money. Like where do those thoughts, behaviors, and beliefs actually come from? Like what's the stem or the root of those things? And what does that mean? What's triggering those ideas or those behaviors? And most importantly, how do we heal from these things? Because oftentimes that's the stuff that can really hold us back. If we have a spending problem, if we have a belief around money that's not conducive or it's not constructive to where we actually want to be, that can really hold us back. So if we can figure out where that comes from, what's causing it, then we can then figure out how to heal from it. And if we can heal from that and we actually like take that power back that was once stripped from you, well, then we're able to then explode forward to where you not only want to be, but where you actually deserve to be too. So it's a lot of inner work that I do. I've had a lot of people tell me, even on my consultations, they'll say something along the lines of like, "I didn't realize I was stepping into therapy," and it's like, well,
Right.
it kind of is like financial therapy in certain ways, right? But being able to figure that stuff out, it then makes the numbers and the money work more effectively for you. And not only do you start to pay off debt fast, you start to save money faster, but also like your confidence gets renewed. Your marriage starts to
Mm.
blossom again. Even just what you think is possible for your own self starts to really come to the forefront. And to me, when I see my clients succeed, I love it when they pay off debt. I love it when their bank accounts grow. I love it when they buy that first house. But what I really love seeing is talking to someone for the first time, seeing them be in a broken state, full of anxiety, full of stress, lacking confidence, to then transform into this person to where it's like you're not even the same person that I knew a few short months ago.
Mm.
Like that's the real reward for me is just seeing people really step into their highest form.
Yeah. That's incredible because I know that I my old adage is it's not how much you make, it's how you manage what you make. And so to your point, when
Hmm.
somebody can like really heal from some of the past money hurts or scripts that they've told themselves, now they open themselves up to manage what they have well. And when they manage what they have well, like you said, they explode and all of a sudden every financial goal that they're putting down on paper, they're crushing it
Hmm.
in a fraction of the time that they thought it would otherwise take, right? So often when I sit down with a client and I can help them map it out and they can see that we can like eliminate all of their debt, within 18 months or less, they're like, how do you do this like miracle math? Like, how did you get there? And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
again, when we're managing what we have well, and I just kind of focus on like this is what you have to manage. Let's manage it well. Let's do these things to accomplish those goals. I love that you take it a step deeper, and it's like, well, let me help you unlock the motivation that you're
Hmm.
really going to need to be able to manage money well and to do
Yeah.
it over the long term. For you know aptly named new money habits, right? That you create an actual habit that you
Mhm.
can then, you know,
Yeah, and in
that
a
lives
really good
stands the test
example,
of time.
I'll keep this very, very brief. Good example is I'm working with a couple out in California right now. I've been working with them for about 7 months now. And when we first talked, they were living paycheck to paycheck. They had about $400,000 worth of consumer debt. So on top of their mortgage, right?
Mm,
And they were not on the same page with each other. The way that they communicated around money was completely opposite. The way they thought about money was completely opposite. And it caused a lot of tension within the relationship and friction within the relationship. Fast forward 7 months later, I talked to them on Saturday. They said, we don't fight about money anymore. We feel really confident about where it's at, what we're doing, where we're going. The household just feels lighter. Our kids are noticing. And oh, by the way, over the last 7 months, we've also paid off $70,000 worth of debt. So it's just like, wow,
wow.
And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everyone can pay off 70 grand within 7 months, but they did it, and they were quote
Yeah.
unquote paycheck to paycheck before. So, the
Wow.
results of this can be really, like you mentioned, magic math
Yeah.
kind of thing. And it's hard to explain until you actually experience it.
Yep. Yeah, and some people have bigger shovels to clean up the mess with, and so
Hmm.
sometimes that's the reason. But the principle still stands that when
Yeah.
you're managing your money well, all of a sudden you are doing some miraculous things.
Hey there, budgeteers. Good news can only be good news if there's bad news. So, what's the bad news? The bad news is you and I have a deadly disease called sin, and this disease causes us to rebel and disobey God. See, God is holy, righteous, and just, and He cannot be in the presence of sin. So, this horrible disease of ours separates us from the God who created us. And the bad news gets worse. There isn't anything you or I can do to make ourselves right with God. We are dead in our sins and on our way to an eternity separated from God. But that's not God's will for us. See, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. God did what only God could do. He made a way for us to be reconciled to Him through Jesus Christ. Jesus came into the world to save sinners like you and me. While we were still sinners, storing up God's anger against us for our rebellion and disobedience, Christ died for us. Jesus took the punishment that you and I deserve and have earned. Jesus is the substitute for your punishment and mine. Now, isn't that some good news? The word gospel means good news. The gospel of Jesus Christ is that you and I broke God's law and Jesus paid the fine. When we place our faith and trust in Jesus, we get to experience God's grace and mercy. Our gratitude should turn us from our rebellious and disobedient sin toward God, seeking after Him and His righteousness. When we do, God gives us a new heart and a new mind. Praise God for His goodness, and remember, God loves, humans sin, Jesus saves.
Let's transition a little bit. I just want to have a conversation with you today about what I think is probably a hot topic. As of the date of this recording, we're approaching tax day 2025, but I think the bigger story is the fact that the economy is just crazy. I mean,
Hmm.
the economy's crazy, the country's crazy, and the flames are only being fueled by sensationalized headlines and all of this
Yep.
craziness. So, I wanted to kind of talk about how can we help our listeners uh, navigate and manage the crazy economy well. How can we maybe put their mind at ease, but also give them a couple of here, do this, don't do that when the economy is crazy. So just kind of wanted to open it up for, almost like a do's and don'ts when the
Hmm.
economy is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that it's important to first say that you are absolutely correct in that there's a lot of sensationalizing happening. There's a lot of fear mongering happening around these headlines and people, calling for doomsday, with the financial stuff. And it's really easy to get wrapped up into that. I mean, even like, my own mother, she's like, oh my gosh. I'm just like, Mom, chill out, like
Yep.
you're going to be all right. We're going to be okay. So, I think it's first important just to talk about that because there's the old adage with journalism or news outlets that is, hey, if it bleeds, it reads kind of thing. And this is
Yep.
just a prime example of that. It's all about the ratings. So, of course, they're going to say, everything is coming down. Of course, you're going to say, like, you're going to lose everything if this happens or if that happens or, be careful and all this kinds of stuff. So, I think that it's important for me to say, and you can even comment on this too, is just sometimes it's good to just recognize that it's set up this way for us to start talking so that they get the ratings. And maybe, just maybe, it's not as crazy as it actually seems. And if it is, then hey, we're going to talk about how to prepare for it.
Yeah. Now, I'm glad that you said that because you're right. Number one, the media is designed to get ratings, right? They need to make sure that if they're on television, that people are watching. If they're on the radio, that people are listening. That is the number one. Once upon a time, maybe I don't know. Maybe once upon a time, the news was just the news. I think I remember a time
I remember
where
it.
you turn it
Yeah.
on, and it would just be like, this is what's happening, right? For instance, like we're raising tariffs in an effort to do X, Y, and Z, and it would be really charge neutral, right? Like whether you thought raising tariffs was a good idea or a bad idea, it was like that doesn't matter. I'm just reporting to you the thing that's happening and the reason we believe it's happening. So tariffs being raised in an effort
Yeah.
to do X, Y, Z. And that's what I hope our conversation can be for people is like, hey, we'll just kind of talk about what's going on and then give you some real good do's and don'ts around how to respond to that. And so for me, I know that one of my kind of go-tos lately is when people are like, hey, like the craziness, what do I do? What do I do? And I say, first of all, take a deep breath.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two, regardless of who's in power down here on the big green ball, somebody much more powerful is in charge above.
Yeah. Yep.
And number three, stop watching the news.
Yeah. All three are huge.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So take a
But,
breath and
yeah,
move on.
as much as we can make it seem so simple, which really it can be that simple, right? But as much as we try to make it as simple as that, there are, certain things and certain people who are just kind of looking for more, tangible things like, hey, like,
Yep.
I get that. I hear
Yep.
you. I accept it. I understand it. But tell me what
Now
to
what?
do. Right.
Yeah. Now what?
Um, yeah. So if it's cool with you, I actually have like a couple things I think it's probably good
Yeah.
to kind of talk about depending on where people are at.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So that statement of depending on where people are at, I really mean that in the sense that like, you might be listening to the show and you might be, at a place to where maybe you have no or minimal debt. You have a decent, what I would call like a sleep well at night fund, also known as an emergency fund. And you're really at a place to where you're starting to really, double down and invest more, right? So to those people, what I would say is a couple things. Um, I see all the time whenever the markets go down, people panic. And they start saying like, "Oh my gosh, I'm losing all this money." And yes, in a way, you're losing money, but you don't really lose the money unless you actually pull out the investments when they're down. Because what history has showed us is that we've gone through dips in the market, even much like this. We've seen it time and time again. And what always happens is that it always recovers and it always bounces back. So if you're the type of person who's panicking in this moment and you're considering selling because you don't want to lose more money, well, what I just want you to understand is that if you were to cash out your investments during this down period of time, you are in fact losing money by doing that. But if you just like keep it in there, understand that there's cycles that kind of go through the markets, and this is just another one of those cycles. And understand that history has shown us time and time again that it will bounce back, it will recover, and it will also grow from where it was even before. Well, then you're going to lose out on all that growth as well. So don't panic. Don't make emotional decisions around this period of time, and just kind of trust the process and trust also the history of what has been, because that's a really good indicator of what will be as well.
Yep.
So that's one thing I want to say. The other thing that I want to say is that sometimes people will look at these times where the market's down and they'll try and get strategic with it. And what I mean by that is they will try and time the market and make a good and quick buck. So maybe you see the market's down and you're like, well, this is a prime buying opportunity, which typically would be a good mindset to have. A lot of people have the mindset of like, oh, the market's down, I need to pull out, which is totally not what you should do. And then there's other people who say, oh, the market's down, I should buy in, which is much better than pulling out. However, there's a little bit of a catch-22 with that. Because if you were to look at the market today and say, oh, okay, I think that this is the bottom of where it's going to be, and then you throw, a couple $1,000s into there, but then it drops by another 10%, well, that wasn't a very good investment at that time, right? And really what that is it's investing for it's really investing for greed. That's really what it is, and anytime that we operate for trying to go after something out of the lines of greed, it usually doesn't work out best for us, right?
Yeah.
So to both of those people, what I will say is like, just ride the ride, play the long game, and do what's kind of called like dollar cost averaging, which is basically like, hey, you're consistently investing, whether it be once a week, once a month, once a paycheck, whatever it might be. Because when you do that, you will naturally buy in when the market's down. You'll also buy in when the market's up, and you'll basically come out on top with a average to where you're actually making a pretty decent return. It's the second where you try and time the market that you're really starting to be risky with it, and it's a very volatile thing right now, and that might come back to bite you. So that's one thing I want to say.
I want to expand on that point by saying, when we start to try to time the market, so if we're not investing in the market for, say, like retirement, and it's not a long-term strategy, it's a short-term, that is just another fancy way of gambling.
It's glorified,
it's glorified gambling. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. And if you're not somebody who's going to go off to the casino and lay down $2,000 on the roulette table, then why would you take $2,000 to the market and start to try to play it? Right. So it's glorified gambling at that point, versus, to your point, history shows us that the more time you're in the market, you are going to be up over that time, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, that your money will have grown. So all of this day trading and trying to time the market, let me make sure that I buy low and sell high, it's glorified gambling. And if that's your jam, that's your jam. But when we're talking about people looking for, like, what do I do, right? And what don't I do? Well, continue to buy into the market as it goes down, but understand, to Cody's point, that it may continue to go down. And I want to give like a solid, firm example on this. Everybody remembers the 2008 housing crash. So in 2008, the prices of homes starts to come down. I bought my home in 2010. So it was definitely, I got my house for far less than what people would have paid for it 2 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But when I bought my home, I watched it go down in value for the next 2 years because the bottom didn't hit until 2012. Okay, so I bought on the way down. So I got it at a discount. I got a great price. And if I was only in it for the short term, if I was like, oh, I'm just going to buy this house for 2 years, I'm going to turn around and try to make a profit, well, I would have been crushed because
Mm-hmm.
for 2 more years, it just went down and down and down. Then it hit the bottom. It not only rebounded, but today my house is worth 4 times what I originally paid for it.
Right.
So the market is very similar. You put $2,000 in right now, you might lose a little bit. It might be valued at like $1,500, over the next couple of months or whatever, but eventually it will rebound. And eventually your $2,000 will be valued more than $2,000. And if you're lucky, if you've been in it long enough, it'll be worth 4 times that amount or more. So
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to kind of put an illustration to that idea.
And it's a perfect example. I was actually, before you even said that your house is now worth 4 times as much, I was going to ask you, I was like, well, what's it worth now? Right. Because that's the power of just like, obviously you're buying a house. It's a little bit different than investing into the stock market, but it's the same line of thinking to where it's like, well, you played the long game by staying in that house and not buying it, living there for 2 years and then moving. Because if that was the case, then you would have lost on the house that you have now. Now it would have been a good buying time in 2 years, right? Which would
Yes.
then, if you stayed in there for long enough, it would then be good, right? But if you just bought a new house every 2 years, you'd be like, well, what am I doing? Like you're not actually building equity, you're not actually building wealth, and that's kind of the same line of thinking of like short-term investing versus long-term investing, right? So
Yeah.
it's a great comparison, a great point, and I think it just drives home that point even more. I
Yeah.
do think that it's important to also just speak to the people who are like, hey, the investing stuff, that's cool. And honestly, that's all I hear about right now because that's what's the hot topic. It's being painted basically everywhere. It's always talking about the market, the market, the market, the market, the
Right.
market.
Yep.
But I'm not really in the market right now. But I still have concerns around inflation, around a looming recession, and just about like protecting myself as well. Why don't we
Yeah.
get talked to enough, right? So I would love to give these people some love.
Hey there, budgeteers. It's a brand new year, and that means it's time for new habits, starting with your money. Take charge of your finances in 2025 with New Money Habits Financial Coaching. This isn't your typical financial advice. New Money Habits is all about giving you the knowledge, tools, and support to make confident money moves and build a rock solid financial foundation. Here's the deal: we're offering a free discovery session to kick off your journey to financial freedom. That's right, no strings attached. In this session, one of our expert coaches will help you to identify your financial goals and create a better plan for your money. We'll help you master your money mindset, sharpen your money management skills, and keep you accountable every step of the way. Make 2025 the year you say goodbye to financial stress and hello to the freedom you've been dreaming about. Schedule your free discovery session today and start creating the new money habits you need to achieve financial freedom. So, Cody, I'm not in the market. I don't invest. Or like that's not what I'm worried about right now. Like, yeah, maybe I'm putting into my 401k and I'm not thrilled that it's going down. But hey, man, I'm just trying to make ends meet at home. Talk to me.
Yeah. So those people who are trying to make ends meet, they're trying to save money, they're trying to pay off debt. It's a different world and a different thing that you guys should be kind of focusing on. I mean, a lot of this, there's a number of things I would say, but like I think that number one is just to kind of evaluate your discretionary spending. So things like going out to eat, going to the movies, buying stuff on Amazon, stuff like that, right? If you're able to cut back on that and keep a lot of that money home instead, then that's going to protect you a little bit more. Now, saying that, there will be the devil's advocate saying, well, if everybody did that, then we would be going into a recession, no doubt, because there'd be less money going to the economy. And that person would be technically correct. But at the same time, we have to protect ourselves first.
Yes.
We can't be thinking about the big picture too much if it means that we're then putting our own safety and our own well-being to the side. So
Yes.
there's going to be plenty of people who continue to spend their butts off, and they will fuel the economy. I promise you. I promise you. And they're probably not listening to this show here today. Okay. Let's be real.
That's right.
Okay. So there's plenty of people who will be doing that. But for you listening today, just take care of yourself and just, watch that spending. I'm not saying for you to not have any enjoyment, but just be intentional with it. That's one thing. And with that, with the money that you save with that, you can then work on a couple other things to protect you. So number one would just be like, hey, let's save as much as we can. If you don't have a sleep well at night fund or even a fully funded sleep well at night fund in place, this is the time to really make that a priority, because we don't know what's going to happen with job layoffs, budget cuts, whatever it might be. I mean, who knows? Like with these tariffs things, they're talking about how there might be more jobs. So that might not be something we might need to even worry about. But it's best to prepare for that, right? So save as much as you can, cut back on that spending. And if you're at a place to where you have a decent amount in savings, but you're really trying to lower your monthly expenses, like paying off debts and stuff like that, I think that in moments like this, there's basically two schools of thought. Nino, you're very aware of the debt snowball approach, to where we focus on the smallest balance and then we go up to the highest balance. I do really, really love that approach. I think that's one of the best ways to pay off debt. But when we're met with a period like this, it may make sense to kind of shift your focus away from some of those lower interest debts. So things that are like 3-5%, something like that, and put more focus on paying off the ones that have the higher interest. So things like, 15, 20, 25%, because you're just bleeding money that way, and if we can knock those out during this time, not only are you going to be freeing up payments by doing that, but then also you're going to be freeing up the amount of money that you're bleeding as well, which is a huge thing to protect yourself currently. So,
Yeah. Recently I did an episode where I talked about like how to get how to get recession ready, right? So how can I prepare for a recession, right? And the same things that you were talking about there, where the first thing I want people to ask themselves is, am I at risk? Do I think that I'm at risk of losing my income? Because if I'm at risk of losing my income, this becomes even more important. If you're not at risk of losing your income, like I work with people who are in like state jobs, like correctional officers. They're not going anywhere anytime soon because they're so understaffed, right? So it's not like, oh, I have to worry about losing my job because my place is already understaffed. All I have to worry about is maybe not getting as much overtime if all of a sudden they got staffed up.
sure.
Or I work with tenured professors who they're going to be professors until they decide to retire, that type of thing, right? So ask yourself if you're really at risk for unemployment. And if you are, then to your point, let's build up the savings. Let's have what we call a peace of mind fund. I love your sleep easy at night fund. That's awesome. I just love that we're both not calling it an emergency fund, because that's so like 2 decades ago.
Well, not only that, I'm going to pause you for a second, but not only
Yeah.
that, I think that words are really powerful. And I think
Yep.
that if you were to call something an emergency fund, it's essentially like you're inviting emergencies into your life. And literally, Nino, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
Right.
So why in the
Right.
world would we call it something like that, right? So the way I think of it is whether you call it peace of mind fund, like you mentioned, that's something that people want, or what I call it, which would be a sleep well at night fund, that's something that people want. So let's invite those things into our lives, you know?
Yep. Yep.
So just a quick
Yeah,
little
we offer.
side note for you.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's like you've collaborated with us before or something, and that like
It's
that
weird.
words matter, and yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, building up that savings. And then to your point, managing net debt, and we, I'd love to talk about the different ways to eliminate debt because I think giving people options and helping to empower them as to what option is going to work best for them. So like whether it's the debt snowball listing
Mhm.
everything from smallest to largest by balance owed, or if it's the debt avalanche and we're going to list all of our debts by highest interest rate to lowest interest rate, or even the cash flow index, which has you do a small calculation to figure out like which loan by paying off would free up the most money in my cash flow every month. So
Mhm.
to kind of regardless of the method you choose, the idea of taking a look at your debt and finally attacking it and saying, okay, like, and I do agree with you that in these times, going after the high interest debt that's just kind of making you bleed is important. But I think there's a step even before that, and that is no new debt. I think
Yeah.
you and I take for
Mhm.
granted maybe sometimes that when we kind of say like, hey, it's time to eliminate debt, that others might naturally like understand, oh, okay, well, to eliminate debt, I need to stop taking on new debt. But I think it's important that we actually slow down long enough to say, and no new debt.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's super important. It's really tough to dig yourself out of a hole when you just keep digging a little bit deeper, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing to where like, what a lot of people will do is they'll try and pay off a credit card, but while they're paying it off, they're also spending money on it. And it's like, well, how do you think
Yeah.
that that's going to work, So yeah, it's the same line of thinking, like, so don't take out more debt. Now obviously there are certain circumstances where maybe you need to, because you're kind of backed into a corner, um and that just goes down to having the foundation of your finances maybe not up to snuff, um
Mm-hmm.
but anything in your power to avoid that is going to be huge, huge.
Yep. Yep. So getting in another part of the debt conversation I like to have is we teach to pay off debt in phases. And so not all debt is
Hmm.
created equal. Your mortgage is not equal to, some astronomical 18 to 25% interest rate on a credit card. So not all
Hmm.
interest or not all debt is created equal. And then even something like medical bills that are not accruing any interest, so we
Hmm.
talk about paying off in phases. And so phase one is that active interest bearing debt, the stuff that's accruing new interest, daily or monthly. And then phase two is go after the non interest bearing debt, things that like medical bills where it's like, hey, I can pay the minimum for now and I'll pay it off after I pay off all of the debt that is actually accruing interest.
Hmm.
So yes, definitely eliminate debt. Definitely eliminate high interest debt. Pay off debt in phases. Um, what else can? What else is like a do or a don't? So we do have save. Build up your savings. We have don't take on new debt and do pay down high interest debt. What else could somebody do to kind of prepare themselves or just navigate the crazy economy well?
Well, this isn't anything that you can really do, but I think it's more so something to kind of keep in mind and to remember. And it's almost like a mindset kind of thing. Um, and that's basically this. And I have a group program with a number of my clients that have gone through my initial program and then they decided to keep going. And it's in a group
Mm-hmm.
setting, which is very powerful. It's awesome when you have that kind of community together. But I was speaking to him about this past week, and I basically told them all, some of them are trying to pay off debt, some of them are trying to build up savings, some of them are trying to invest, right? And I basically told them all, regardless of what's happening with the economy and the politics and the markets and all that kinds of stuff, the number one thing that you can do to take care of yourself is to take care of yourself. And what I mean by that is, before this market craziness happened, you had a plan to take care of yourself financially. And maybe that plan looked like paying off debt. And with this new market craziness, that doesn't necessarily change how to take care of yourself. In certain ways it does, but in the grand scheme of things, the answer to take care of yourself financially is still to pay off debt. If before the market, the way that you're preparing to take care of yourself was to save money, then after this whole craziness with the market, that's still the answer. If before the market went crazy, your way of taking care of yourself financially was to invest, then after this happened, that's still the answer. So my point here, and the big mindset thing that I want to just kind of install here, is that just because the world is going crazy, the markets are going crazy, it doesn't change the fact that you know what you need to do in order to take care of yourself financially. So just do it. Don't try and, get creative or, get off of course because of one thing that's happening or another thing that's happening. It's really important to just stay the course, because here's a spoiler alert for you, Nino. The markets and the world and the economy and the politics will always be changing. Always be changing. And
They will.
anyone,
They don't stay the same.
yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy concept to think about. But anyone who just bounces from one thing to the next, 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 is never actually going to accomplish anything. It's the people who say, hey, this is my priority. This is my mission. And I'm going to stick to the mission no matter what comes up, no matter what I need to do, no matter what happens. I'm sticking to the mission. I'm sticking to the vision. And if that's the case, then you're going to be just fine. So it's not anything to do or don't do. It's more so of a mindset around everything.
Got it. There's one, as you were sharing that, there was one other kind of scenario that I would like us to address before we wrap things up.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked about the people who are investing, and we talked about the people who aren't investing and how they have to kind of just stick to their plan. Let's talk to the person who says, okay, Cody, that all sounds well and good. You and Nino, yeah, like fine. I'll control what I can control, but what I can't control is, or what I can at least foresee coming, is an increase in the price of goods and services, right? So I still need to go to the grocery store. I still need to feed my family. My dollar's just not going nearly as far. And if tariffs, make that even more difficult, because the truth is, before the tariffs talk, prices on goods and services were way out of control anyway. I mean, the cost of food is up like over 30% over the last 2 years, right? So if it gets harder and harder and harder to feed my family, to keep the lights on and the water running, and to gas up my car to get to work, what do I do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that is a little bit more of a challenging question, because again, much like anything with personal finance, it is personal. Like different people's situations look, feel different. So take it with a grain of salt. But what I will say is that I think that it's important to do kind of like an audit on yourself and be like, okay, so where is my money actually going? And if the price of eggs go up, or the price of gas goes up, then that means that somewhere else in here needs to then come down so that it then balances, right? And maybe there's room for that. Maybe there's not room for that. So, as much as I hate to say this, it could be another thing to where it's like, hey, like maybe it's time to start that side hustle you've been thinking of. Maybe it's time to go get that second job. Like maybe it's time to sell some stuff. Like whatever you need to do to make it through this challenging period, do it. Because again, it's not always going to be like this. The market corrects, the market changes. And if it's something you have to do for a short period of time or a temporary period of time, then it is what it is. But what I will say is this. If you're someone who's thinking that and someone who, has that same concern and you aren't mapping out your money, as I call it, or in other words, budgeting, right? If you don't have a formal plan to tell the money where to go and you don't know what's actually happening with it, and I'm not talking about just the fixed expenses like your car insurance, your car payment, your mortgage. I'm talking about the variable expenses like your groceries, your gas, your fund money, all these other things. If you don't know what's actually happening to the money, then chances are is that you're probably being nickeled and dimed and probably just losing a lot of money by having it just slip through the cracks. So one thing that I say to people all the time, which I see literally all the time, is that people will tell me, "Oh, I'm living paycheck to paycheck." But then I do like a rundown of their finances and I'm like, "You're not living paycheck to paycheck. It's just slipping out of your fingers." So something I say to people all the time is you actually have way more money than you actually think. It's just not working for you at its maximum capacity quite yet. And that key word is yet. So if you don't have something like that set up, then now is the time to do that. And if you do have something like that set up, then now is the time to reevaluate it and see like, hey, where can I make adjustments in order to have it align myself with what I need and what my goals are and to protect myself and my family, but also still align with my values, like still being able to lean into the things that are important to me. But just doing things more intentional,
Yep.
So that would be my message to that select group of people.
Yeah. I love the word audit there, right? So you said audit yourself. And I love that it's not just like audit your numbers. It's not just audit your income and your expenses and kind of see, what's going on there. It's really like take an inventory and an audit of yourself. Are you doing everything you can to make sure that you are maximizing your income potential? And what I mean by that sometimes is I just sat down with a client last week in which I said, you are woefully underpaid. You are you are giving this company more of yourself than they deserve because they do not compensate you well. So are you to that client, are you doing everything you can to maximize your earning potential, because your income earning potential is far greater than what you settled for? I see it, right? And I'm not just trying to blow smoke at the guy. I'm like, you are an incredible asset and they don't appreciate it. So audit yourself. Have I done everything I can do to maximize my earning potential? And if the answer is yes, maybe you're running 3 jobs right now and you're doing the absolute best that you can. The other part of that audit is, am I minimizing my cost of living, my expenses, my debts, and these types of things? Am I minimizing those so that I can live with margin? Is there a surplus? Because at the end of the day, it's income minus expenses equals surplus or deficit. And if you 9 times out of 10, I sit down with a client, put it on paper, and to your point, they make more than what they spend. They have a surplus. It's just that they have no idea where that surplus is going until we start to get into it. And so until we do this audit, and then it's like, oh, I didn't realize that I was spending that much on those things. I need to reel that in, and they come up
Yeah.
they come up with it. I need to reel it in. I'm not telling them what they have to do. They realize, ooh, now that I have that information, I want to do something different.
Yeah. I'm even going to double down, and I'm going to say it's not just about auditing your expenses or auditing your income earning potential. But when I say audit yourself, I really do mean that. And that's why I talked about goals and values, right? Because maybe you do the audit for the expenses, you do the audit for the income, and you find that like you spend a lot of money on things that while you may enjoy them, they don't actually bring you value. So, for example, if you go to Chipotle every single day on your lunch break and you spend $15 on a burrito and a side of chips and guac, maybe you enjoy doing that, but is it actually bringing you value? Is it actually like bringing you fulfillment? Is it actually bringing you closer to where you actually want to be in life? Maybe not. And hey, I get it, man. Chipotle's got some really good guac. I get it. I get it. But maybe we can cut back on that and save, maybe instead of doing it every day, you do it like once or twice a week. You still get your fix because you enjoy it. But then we save all that extra money to then actually take care of the things that are actually important to us or that actually value us, like our own security, like, providing for our family, like protecting our family. That's what I mean about doing the audit. It's doing an audit on yourself, because even when you do that, if you're more aligned with your values and your spending, all of a sudden, not only are you going to help, curb some of those spending habits, but also when you do spend money on enjoyment or pleasure or fun, it's actually going to feel rewarding because you actually value it, because you know that you're aligned with your values and your money.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff, brother. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Cody, tell everybody what you're up to and where they can find you.
Yeah. So I'm just out here helping as many people as I can, So if you want to connect with me, you can look me up pretty much on all socials. You can just type in Sizemore Financial Coaching. It's spelled just the way it sounds, like two words put together, Sizemore Financial Coaching. If you're a TikTok person, I recently started to, put some more stuff out on TikTok, some very valuable content, some funny content as well. You can just find me there as Cody Money Coach on TikTok. And is it cool if I give like the listeners a gift if they really want it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we can throw this on like the show notes or something like that. But if you're looking for, just like a free resource to, help you kind of be more aligned with your goals, pay down debt, build up your savings, build wealth, whatever it might be. I do have a free 45-minute webinar that I call Master Your Money: 5 Simple Shifts to Rapidly Eliminate Your Debt and Amplify Your Wealth. And you can find that at just www.masteryourmoney.support. Not .com, but .support, because that's what I really want to do for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing those things. You can also catch Cody on the New Money Habits Patreon page. He is one of the dozen coaches over there who are contributing just invaluable information and collaborating with us over there to bring you guys a ton of value. So come and check out Cody there. Check out the 4 tiers that we offer for membership. And if you're not ready to pay for a membership, come hang out anyway. Join for free. We are doing a bunch of free content, including this month, we're doing the 30-day financial literacy challenge. And so we are posting every single day a new financial literacy nugget for you, where the information will change the way you think and behave with money. Cody, thank you again for spending some time with us. Listeners, again, I apologize for keeping Cody from you for so long, but we'll make sure that we have you back on in the very, very near future.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. This was fun, and we will do this again. That's for sure. So.
Absolutely.
That does it for this episode of the New Money Habits Podcast. Remember, if you have any questions, Make sure to hit us up on social at New Money Habits and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please consider leaving a 5-star rating and review to help us spread this message of hope to people looking for a better plan for their money.